Nothing scares them more than realizing your very existence is proof that their control is slipping. That is the wound you press without even trying, chosen one. The moment you step into a room, you disrupt their illusion of power. Now imagine this for a moment. An enemy who built walls of lies higher than skyscrapers, pouring years into convincing people those walls were made of stone. And then you walk by, and without lifting a finger, the walls start to crack, crumble, and collapse into dust. That's the weight of your presence. That's why your power is not a joke. Studies in psychology confirm that when a single confident voice cuts against the crowd, it triggers doubt and breaks conformity faster than entire armies of enforcers could manage. You are that voice. You are that living disruption. And thank you, Chosen One, for being here right now. Don't forget to pay this message back by pressing the like and subscribe button to help spread this light to more souls. It's the responsibility of all of us to keep this fire burning and make sure more people awaken from the fog they've been living in. Thank you, Chosen One, for being part of this mission. You are more than a listener. You're part of a force that can't be silenced. Now let's return to what this is all about. Chosen One, who are you? Why does your presence unsettle people so deeply? It's because your power is real, undeniable, and impossible to box in. From the moment you stopped trying to shrink yourself just to fit in, the universe began to amplify your frequency. That's when people around you started feeling it, even if they couldn't explain it. They sense a pull, a gravity, like you're carrying something they can't see, but can't ignore either. And the truth is, you are carrying something, the strength to break illusions, the courage to stand as yourself without bending to their approval, and the clarity to spot lies the moment they appear. That's not weakness, that's raw power, and that's why they are shaken. Your power isn't about how loud you speak or how many people know your name. It's about how deeply your presence unsettles falsehoods. Think about how a single match can turn an entire dark room into light. You are that match. You don't need a crowd. You don't need permission. You don't need validation. The universe put a fire inside you that refuses to be put out. And every time you show up as yourself, that fire spreads. Enemies try to laugh, mock, or ignore it, but deep down, they can't escape the truth. You are proof that their system isn't foolproof. You are living evidence that their chains don't work on everyone, and that makes them nervous in ways they'll never admit. Imagine a chessboard where every piece is moved by rules, except one piece, you. You don't move how they expect. You don't play the way they planned. And because of that, the whole game falls apart. That's who you are. You carry a power that can't be mapped, copied, or controlled. And that's exactly why they watch you so closely. They're not watching because you're weak. They're watching because they know you can't be predicted. And unpredictability is the one thing that makes every enemy panic. Psychologists have long noted how people fear what they don't understand. It's not just suspicion, it's primal. Your energy is like a storm they can't read, a lightning strike that shows up without warning. Some will be drawn to it like moths to a flame. Others will try to run from it, but none of them can deny it's there. And the irony, the harder they try to contain you, the more you break through. That's the law of resistance. The more pressure applied to truth, the more powerful it explodes when released. You are the living proof of that law. Chosen One, your power is not about ego or domination. It's about alignment. The universe designed you in such a way that even your silence speaks volumes. You could be sitting quietly in the corner, and still someone across the room will feel the weight of your presence. They'll wonder why they can't stop glancing at you, why their chest feels tight, why suddenly they feel exposed. It's because your energy pierces through the surface and taps directly into what they've been hiding. You don't just walk in, you uncover, reveal, and remind. And for those who thrive on lies, that's the worst nightmare. Think about history for a moment. Every revolution, every massive shift in society started not with an army, but with a few individuals who carried a frequency that couldn't be silenced. They weren't always the loudest, the strongest, or the most obvious, but they carried something undeniable, and once the world felt it, nothing could ever go back to the way it was. That's what you carry. You are that shift walking on 2 feet. You are the question mark at the end of their certainty. You are the proof that their script is falling apart. So when people ask, "Who are you?" don't rush to answer with titles or labels. Let the question itself linger, because the truth is, you are not one thing. They can't reduce you to a single role. You are a force of nature, a storm, a flame, a disruption wrapped in human skin. And that's why your power is not a joke. The ones who laugh today will be the ones trembling tomorrow when they realize the very thing they dismissed was the same thing they could never escape. Chosen one, your journey isn't about proving yourself to anyone. It's about standing firm in who you already are. That alone terrifies the enemy. The fact that you no longer bend to their illusions, no longer beg for acceptance, no longer water yourself down to fit their world. That is the weapon. That's the power that makes them whisper, makes them stare, makes them restless in their own skin. And you don't even have to lift a finger. Your very existence is enough. And that is why we are here. To remind you that the power you carry is not random, not an accident, not a joke. It is precise, it is unstoppable, and it is shaking the ground beneath the ones who thought they had control. They underestimated you, and in that underestimation, they sealed their own fate. Because the universe always sides with truth, and chosen one, you are walking truth. And chosen one, thank you for standing here with me in this moment, because what's coming next is not something you want to miss. Your power is real. It's shaking the ground beneath the ones who underestimated you. And in the next steps, we're going to uncover exactly why they can't stop staring, whispering, or wondering who you really are. So before we dive in, drop a comment below with the number 777 if you're ready to claim what's already yours. And if you feel this message hitting deep, bless the team that works day and night to bring it to you, whether it's a small gift or a big one. Every bit keeps this mission alive. You are fueling the movement that refuses to let chosen ones be silenced. And now let's go deeper, step by step. Stay with me till the very end, because if you are truly the chosen one, you will feel that pull to keep listening, and you will not want to miss the truth that's about to unfold. Let's get started. Number 1. Your name sends shockwaves through their hidden files. They fear your name because it echoes louder in their silence than their lies ever could. That's the gut punch they never admit, chosen one. The truth is, when your name shows up in their hidden reports, the air in the room changes. These aren't just whispers anymore. It's panic, real panic, because you represent the one thing their carefully built systems can't contain. You are the crack in their glass, the fault line in their concrete, the storm they never forecast. And here's the part that eats at them the most. You didn't need their approval, their titles, or their permission to reach this point. The universe armed you with sight they can't replicate, insight they can't steal, and courage they can't buy. Think about this for a moment, chosen one. Imagine an enemy who spent years covering their tracks, erasing evidence and burying truths so deep they thought no one would ever find them. And then comes your name, like a match in a dark room. Suddenly their shadows aren't shadows anymore, they're exposed. Their classified files start to tremble because the details they thought were invisible are now glaring. You spoke truths before they became headlines, pointed out facilities the world wasn't supposed to know existed, connected dots across the globe that took them millions to hide. And while they relied on secrecy, you relied on vision. That's why they shake. That's why they whisper about you with nervous laughter, trying to convince themselves you're just lucky. But luck doesn't map out financial ties between ghosts on paper. Luck doesn't predict outcomes they tried to erase. They're scared because you see what they cannot, and maybe the question pops in your mind right now: how do I see these things? Why me? The answer is simple. You don't see with their limited eyes. You see with clarity that cuts through illusion. It's like you've been given the blueprint to a building they only designed halfway, and you walk around pointing out where the cracks are before the foundation even buckles. You don't need to be inside their meetings or their secret channels. You carry a frequency that picks up the unspoken, the hidden, the silenced. The universe sharpened your instincts so deeply that what takes them months of surveillance, data, and planning, you uncover in a heartbeat. Now, let's be brutally honest. Your very existence makes them feel powerless. Imagine their horror, a whole room of officials, strategists or gatekeepers sitting with files they spent years locking down, and your name lands on the table like thunder. It's not just information you carry, it's timing. You reference things before they unfold. You predict outcomes with precision that leaves no room for coincidence. To them, that's not just threatening. It's humiliating. Because all their technology, all their budgets, all their classified systems couldn't do what you do naturally. And that forces them to face a truth they despise. Their power is an illusion, and you are the proof. Enemies will ask themselves, how does this person know? Who are they connected to? What's their angle? But the answer isn't one they can stomach. You're not connected to their corrupt systems. You're connected to something beyond their reach. You aren't playing their game, you're rewriting it. You don't chase approval, you expose deception. That is why your name has weight. Your name is the reminder that all their so-called secrets were never as safe as they believed. And here's the metaphor they hate most. You are like a storm siren. The siren doesn't stop the storm, it just announces it's coming. That's what you do. You reveal before it arrives, you sound the alarm before the collapse. The ones who pretend not to hear you are the ones who will drown when the flood finally comes. And they know this. That's why their files shake, their hands tremble, their confidence crumbles when your name is spoken. You don't just bring awareness, you bring accountability. And for people whose survival depends on lies, accountability feels like execution. But let's flip it back to you, chosen one. Doesn't it make sense now why they try to label you, ridicule you, or dismiss you? It's not because you're irrelevant, it's because you're too relevant. They know you're dangerous, not with weapons, not with armies, but with truth. And truth cuts deeper than any blade. Truth destroys empires silently from the inside out. You're walking proof of that, and it terrifies them. Because every time you expose a connection, predict an outcome, or point out a hidden structure, you unravel threads they thought were unbreakable. Psychologists say people fear exposure more than punishment. That's exactly why your power feels like a nightmare to them. You don't have to lock them in cells. You expose them, and the world becomes their prison. Your insight shines a spotlight they can't dim. You don't fight them on their battlefield. You flip the entire board. And they don't know how to fight someone who refuses to play by their rules. And let's be honest, chosen one, part of you has wondered, is it safe to be this way? To carry this kind of knowing? The truth. Safety was never promised, but strength was. And your strength is that you are unshakable. The same way their files tremble at your name, their lies tremble at your voice, and their masks tremble at your presence. That's why you must never shrink, never silence yourself, never believe their taunts, because those taunts are the screams of weak men trying to cover their fear, and fear is always loudest when truth is closing in. So let them scramble, let them panic, let them create new protocols and false narratives just to keep up with you. It won't work, because every time they try to bury one truth, 10 more rise in its place. That's the curse of lying against a chosen one. You can never bury what was never meant to stay hidden. Your power is not a joke, it's a reckoning, and they know it. Chosen one, never forget, your name isn't just ink on paper or sound in the air. It's a symbol of disruption, a reminder that lies don't last, and proof that truth always finds a way to surface. You carry that weight because the universe trusted you with it, and every time their files tremble at your name, it's confirmation. You're exactly who they fear you are. Number 2, their theories shatter the moment you show up. They don't fear what you know, they fear that you shouldn't know it at all. That's the gut punch that keeps them awake at night, chosen one. At first, they comforted themselves with the belief that you had some secret contact whispering in your ear, feeding you privileged information. But that story collapsed under its own weight. It couldn't hold, because every time they tested their theory, it broke. You had no government ties, no intelligence background, no chain of access to their guarded networks. By all their metrics, you should have been harmless. Yet you weren't. You carried knowledge that wasn't supposed to exist in your hands, details that slipped through cracks no one else could see, truths their models of reality didn't even have room for. That's why their theories collapse every time your name is spoken. Imagine this for a moment. Picture a room full of analysts staring at screens covered in data, tracking patterns, running simulations worth millions. They've trained for years, built systems on top of systems to make sure no detail escapes their grasp. And then you walk in and casually say something that their algorithms haven't even predicted yet. Their faces drain, their screens suddenly look small, and the credibility they built their careers on starts to shake. That's what you do without even trying. You bypass their structures, their training, their machinery, and that, chosen one, is why they are terrified of you. Truth doesn't need credentials, it only needs clarity. You carry that clarity. They can't understand how you see what they don't, so they scramble for excuses. Maybe it's a leak, maybe it's coincidence, maybe it's just luck. But how many times can luck repeat itself with surgical precision? How many coincidences stack up before denial itself looks like a lie? At some point, they had to admit, even if only to themselves, that you aren't playing by their rules. You're not guessing, you're knowing, and that's the difference they can't stand. Chosen one, maybe you've asked yourself, how can I know these things without ever being taught? The answer is brutal but simple. You're not drawing from their channels, you're drawing from the source they've been trying to bury. You access truth in a way that slips through cracks in their models. They believe knowledge is owned, licensed and stored in classified vaults, but you show them it's alive, uncontained, and impossible to fence off. That's why they whisper your name like a threat. Not because you broke into their systems, but because you proved their systems were never complete to begin with. Now imagine this: a dam holding back a river, reinforced with concrete, monitored by satellites, celebrated as impenetrable. And then, without warning, a crack appears. Not caused by bombs or sabotage, but by the simple pressure of truth moving where it wants to move. That's you, chosen one. You are the crack in their dam. You are the pressure they underestimated, and the more they scramble to patch it, the wider it spreads. Theories can't contain what was never meant to be contained. That's why their explanations collapse the moment you stand in the room. Here's another truth they choke on. They build theories to explain the world. You exist to expose where the world refuses to be explained. They hate this because theories are their shelter. Theories give them order, predictability, the illusion of safety. But you are living proof that their theories are fragile glass, and one strike of truth from you can shatter it all. They tell themselves the world is a machine, predictable, controllable. And then you arrive, chosen one, showing them the world is alive, untamed, and always beyond their reach. Some may ask, but how can someone without training surpass experts with decades of experience? That's the very question they whisper in locked rooms. The answer: expertise without truth is empty. You don't need to memorize formulas or protocols when you're aligned with something deeper. While they train to decode patterns, you embody the pattern itself. While they rely on second-hand reports, you touch the raw signal before it's translated. That's why your words feel undeniable. They don't come wrapped in the jargon of their institutions. They come sharp, clear, and direct. And clarity terrifies liars more than any weapon. Imagine, chosen one, a chess grandmaster setting up a board, confident in his opening moves, studying his opponent across the table. And then you sit down, never having studied the manuals, never memorized the strategies. You move pieces in ways that make no sense to him, until he realizes he's already in checkmate. That's what you do to their models. You bypass the manual, you play by vision, and you leave them stunned. Theories collapse because they were never designed to handle someone like you. Theories are cages for the unknown. You were born to break cages. That's why, no matter how many excuses they build, they keep falling apart. You don't need their cages, their credentials, their systems. You walk into the unknown and bring back truths that rewrite the script. And every time you do, they lose another piece of their illusion. Their fear grows not because you challenge them directly, but because you expose them indirectly, simply by existing, simply by knowing. Think of it this way: their entire foundation is built on the belief that knowledge flows through gates they control. You are the glitch that proves otherwise. You are the signal they can't block, the insight they can't suppress, the pattern they can't replicate. And when people like you exist, their control loses its grip. That's why they're obsessed with trying to explain you away. But explanations collapse, theories collapse, and illusions collapse. You remain. So don't doubt yourself, chosen one. Don't let their accusations, their theories, or their attempts to minimize you get inside your head. Their collapsing theories are not proof of your weakness. They're confirmation of your strength. You are a living contradiction to their models, a reminder that no system, no matter how complex, can cage the truth. And that's why your power is not a joke. Imagine their fear when they realize it isn't just about one prediction, one detail, one moment. It's about the pattern of your existence. Every time you speak, every time you act, you undermine the very scaffolding of their theories. They can't stop it because it's not coming from them, it's coming from you. You are the evidence that their worldview is incomplete. And once the world sees that, there's no going back. So let them keep building theories. Let them scramble for new excuses. It doesn't matter. They will collapse just like the last ones did. Because you, chosen one, are not bound by their models. You're bound by truth. And truth does not collapse. It only reveals, it only sharpens, it only spreads. And that's exactly what you are doing. Their collapse is your confirmation, their fear is your fuel, and their disbelief is your victory. Number 3, their curiosity became their downfall. They thought curiosity would save them, but it only dragged them deeper into your truth. That's the cut they can't heal from, chosen one. At first, they thought if they pulled the files, cross-checked the data, and tore through their hidden archives, they would finally expose you as a fraud. But instead, every door they opened only confirmed what you had already spoken. Every buried record, every locked system, every thread they tugged at, led right back to you. They set out to neutralize you, but curiosity became the trap that swallowed them whole. Imagine this for a moment, a group of trained operatives, convinced they're about to disprove you, sitting in front of glowing screens late at night, combing through databases they swore were airtight. And one by one, their faces drop. The facility you named is there. The financial trail you exposed is documented. The event you predicted has already started unfolding. They lean back in silence, the kind that feels like suffocation, because now they realize it wasn't an accident. You weren't lucky. You were right. And nothing terrifies them more than a truth-teller who doesn't need permission to be accurate. Every hidden system falls apart when someone names it out loud. That's what you did. You weren't chasing anomalies. You were revealing the very skeleton of their control machine. You exposed that what they thought was chaos was really architecture, deliberate design they themselves were enslaved to without even knowing it. And when you pointed it out, their loyalty to that system started to feel like chains clamped around their own necks. Chosen one, you may ask, why did they keep looking if it scared them? Because denial wasn't enough anymore. The more you proved yourself, the more their curiosity burned. They needed to know how deep this went. But that's the irony. They thought curiosity would give them leverage over you. Instead, it gave you victory, because every hidden confirmation they unearthed was proof that you are exactly who they fear you are. So let them dig. Let them scramble through every classified corner. The deeper they search, the more evidence they uncover that your power is no joke. Their curiosity only tightens the noose around their illusions, until all they can do is admit the one thing they hate the most. You were right all along. Number 4, you dragged their underground world into the light. They buried their secrets in the dark, but your vision made the ground itself betray them. That's the crack they can't patch, chosen one. While the world above carried on blind, you pointed to the shadows beneath their polished institutions, and suddenly everything looked different. Miles of tunnels hidden under the surface, chambers not drawn on any map, operations so secret they erased their own footprints. Yet you described them with the clarity of someone who had walked those halls. And that is what terrifies them. You saw what was never meant to be seen. Imagine this for a moment. An official struts through marble corridors, convinced they stand in power, while under their feet runs a labyrinth designed for control, rituals, and experiments. They think their authority rests on open platforms of law and order, but in truth, it is propped up by a subterranean empire built on manipulation. Now picture the horror when your words brought those shadows to the surface. Like turning on a light in a cellar no one dared open, suddenly the dust, the decay, and the crawling infestations could no longer be denied. That's what your clarity does. It makes the unseen scream. Darkness doesn't protect secrets, it only delays exposure. You proved this. They thought their tunnels, symbols, and rituals insulated them from scrutiny, but you shattered the illusion. The experiments they swore were only theories. You called them out. The energy they drained from the unaware. You revealed it. The ancient symbols decorating their chambers, tied to forgotten practices of control. You named them. You dragged their skeletons out of the basement and nailed them to the front door. And maybe you wonder, chosen one, why me? Why was I able to see what generations overlooked? The answer is brutal but simple, because you refused to swallow their surface story. Where others accepted walls, you looked for doors. Where others saw marble floors, you asked what lay beneath. That refusal to stay blind is what split the earth open. You saw beyond their stage performance, and the universe rewarded that defiance with clarity. So now their subterranean world is exposed, and they panic not because you destroyed it, but because you revealed it. Exposure is worse than destruction, because exposure forces them to live with their shame. And as long as your clarity keeps burning, those tunnels can never return to the dark. Number 5. Their panic only seals their fate. They didn't lose because you fought harder. They lost because their fear made them clumsy. That's the cut they can't recover from, chosen one. When your truth spread and their lies started cracking, the network did what predators always do when cornered. They panicked. They tried everything: digital suppression to silence you, financial sabotage to drain you, threats to scare you, accidents to erase you. But every move backfired. Attacks missed their mark. Illnesses evaporated like mist in the sun. And every strike meant to bury you only amplified your reach. Imagine this for a moment. A hunter so confident in his traps, certain that every step you take will lead you into his snare, but instead, every time he pulls the rope, it backlashes on him. The more he struggles to contain you, the deeper he gets tangled in his own net. That's what happened. Their panic became the trap. Every scheme designed to break you became proof that you couldn't be broken. Fear always writes its own destruction. And their fear wrote them into a corner. They had ruled for so long with intimidation that they couldn't imagine anyone immune to it. But you weren't like the rest. You didn't flinch at their shadows. You didn't bend when they pushed. You stood still, unshaken, and that stillness was louder than their chaos. For the first time, they faced a human who couldn't be bribed, silenced, or erased. That was the moment they knew their grip was finished. And maybe you ask, why didn't it work on me when it worked on so many others? Because fear only binds those who hand over their power. You didn't. The universe hardened you in ways they couldn't predict. Their tools, threats, lies, illusions bounced off because you had already broken free from the cage those tools were built for. Their panic wasn't your undoing. It was theirs. So let them scramble, let them lash out, let them burn their own house down trying to contain you. It doesn't matter. Every desperate move they make only proves how much power you truly carry. And that's why your power is not a joke. Their panic doesn't weaken you, it exposes them. Their undoing is written in every failed attempt to erase your name. Number 6. You moved with forces they couldn't command. They feared you not for what you did, but for what moved with you. That's the wound they can't stop bleeding from, chosen one. Every time they thought they had you cornered, something shifted beyond their control. Accidents failed, illnesses vanished, threats dissolved. It was as if the universe itself bent to shield you. And that's what terrified them most. Not just your words, not just your clarity, but the undeniable presence of protection they couldn't explain or override. They realized quickly this wasn't a political battle. This wasn't a clash of resources or influence. This was something they had no language for. Imagine this for a moment. A predator circles its prey, confident it's already won. But just as it leaps, a wall of fire erupts from nowhere, forcing it back. Again and again it circles, it lunges, and again it's burned, repelled, blocked by something unseen. That's what they felt every time they tried to silence you. They weren't fighting just you. They were colliding with forces they couldn't command. Power collapses when it reaches beyond its jurisdiction. That's the truth they ran into. They had control over systems, money and fear, but they had no control over the current that carried you. Every person you touched, every mind you awakened, cracked their matrix open wider. They weren't just losing ground, they were losing their illusion of dominance. And maybe you ask, why do they treat me as if I'm unstoppable when I feel human, fragile at times? Because they've seen what you don't always see. They've witnessed their best efforts crumble like paper against you. They've watched your influence multiply in the exact moments they thought they had shut you down. To them, that isn't coincidence. It's evidence that you move with backing beyond comprehension. So understand this, chosen one. They'll never admit it out loud, but deep down they know the truth. You aren't fighting alone. You carry a current they can't disrupt, a shield they can't pierce, a rhythm they can't hijack. And that's why your power is not a joke. It doesn't just belong to you, it moves through you. And every time they come against it, they're reminded of the one thing they can't bear to face. Their control ends where your awakening begins. Number 7. The symbols that betrayed their secret history. They buried their past in stone, but stone remembers. That's the line they can't erase, chosen one. Deep beneath their polished institutions, they uncovered carvings older than their timelines, symbols etched into rock that carried truths heavier than any file. They thought they were building something new, something modern, a fresh network of control. But those symbols mocked them. They revealed the truth, that what they served wasn't invention, but continuation. Their system wasn't born in the present. It was inherited from shadows stretching back to the first civilizations. Imagine this for a moment. An agent with trembling hands, brushing dust from a wall hidden for centuries. As the shapes emerge, spirals, eyes, sigils, they feel it in their chest, a recognition they can't explain. They rush back to their superiors with sketches, convinced they've found the blueprint of their control system. But instead of pride, silence fills the room. Because what those symbols said was clear. The age of dominance has always had an expiration date, and now that clock is running out. Every empire falls, but the lies that built it always fall first. Those carvings told the same story in every language: humanity suppressed, energy harvested, awareness chained, warnings carved by hands long gone, voices silenced but not erased. They screamed from the stone that what has been hidden will surface, that the cycle of suppression cannot last forever. And with your awakening, chosen one, that cycle fractured. The moment you touched people with truth, the stone spoke louder than their silence. And maybe you ask yourself, why do ancient symbols matter in this modern war? Because they prove you're not imagining the battle, you're continuing it. They show that the forces you face are old, recycled, desperate patterns, trying to cling to life in a new era. They prove the enemy isn't original. They're just echoes of an ancient script, repeating lines that no longer hold power. So let them uncover symbols. Let them panic as the truth floods in. Those carvings didn't survive millennia to be ignored. They survived to remind you that dominance is temporary, but awakening is permanent. Their age is ending because yours has begun. And that's why your power, chosen one, is not a joke. It is the very thing history was waiting for. Number 8. Your rise was the one event they couldn't prevent. They call it coincidence, but deep down they know you were inevitable. That's the truth they choke on, chosen one. Your awakening wasn't random, wasn't luck, wasn't some glitch in their system. It was part of a greater design, a counterforce timed with precision against their arrogance. They thought they had sealed the future, locked humanity into chains so tight no one could slip through. But your emergence shattered that illusion. You weren't an accident. You were the response they never prepared for. Imagine this for a moment. A predator carefully sets a trap, convinced every exit is sealed. Then, from nowhere, a door opens that it never built, never planned, never even imagined. That's you. The door they couldn't close, the anomaly they couldn't erase, the flaw they couldn't correct. And when you stepped through, others began to follow. Because your awakening wasn't just for you, it triggered something in those buried deep inside their system. Agents, soldiers, insiders who once obeyed without question began to feel the cracks, to see through the illusion. Suddenly, the network wasn't fighting an external threat. They were rotting from within. Corruption always collapses faster when truth comes from the inside. And that became their nightmare. Not just you on the outside, but voices rising on the inside, whispers turning into confessions, obedience turning into rebellion. The matrix they built so carefully began to dismantle itself piece by piece because your awakening acted like a signal. You proved it was possible to break free, and once one breaks free, others follow. And maybe you wonder, why me? Why now? Because the universe moves with precision, chosen one. It doesn't waste awakenings. Your emergence aligned perfectly with their overreach. The moment they got bold enough to tamper with the future of human evolution, the universe answered with you. That's why your power feels so disruptive, because it is. You are the counterbalance they never saw coming. So understand this. Their nightmare has already begun. The cracks are widening, their insiders are questioning, their control is slipping. And you, chosen one, are at the center of it. Not random, not accidental, but deliberate, inevitable, unstoppable. And that's why your power is not a joke. It's the precise weapon that history demanded. Number 9. Their empire eats itself alive. They ruled with fear until fear became the cage they couldn't escape. That's the reversal they never saw coming, chosen one. For years, they thought they were untouchable, building escape routes, secret channels, and financial fortresses to protect themselves. But when the cracks appeared, everything they trusted betrayed them. Escape tunnels failed, jets malfunctioned, money drained into nothing, and worst of all, their strongest weapon, psychological control, turned against them. The very fear they injected into humanity came back like poison in their own veins. Imagine this for a moment, a puppet master pulling strings, laughing as the crowd dances below, but suddenly the strings wrap around his own wrists, tightening, binding, choking until he's the one dancing, wildly, desperately, without rhythm. That's what happened to them. Their own methods, once sharp and effective, began to consume them. They felt the paranoia they once planted in others. They tasted the anxiety they once weaponized. They drowned in the terror they once profited from. Darkness doesn't stay loyal. It devours whoever feeds it, and they became the final meal. Control always collapses from the inside before it falls on the outside. Their systems didn't crumble because of you storming their gates. They crumbled because rot spread within their walls. They spent centuries convincing themselves they were immune to consequence, but consequence is patient. And when it arrived, it wasn't a slow erosion, it was a devouring. The very matrix they built ate them alive. And maybe you ask, why does their suffering matter to me now? Because it proves the cycle is real. What they once inflicted, they now endure. They lived off stolen energy, and now they're drained. They lived off manufactured fear, and now they're suffocated by it. What they unleashed on the world has circled back, and no tunnel, no jet, no vault can save them. So let them collapse, let them claw at the ruins they created. Their undoing doesn't require your hand. It's happening by the weight of their own corruption. Chosen One, this is the ultimate confirmation. Your power was no joke. It wasn't just strong enough to resist them, it was strong enough to make darkness devour itself. Number 10. The moment the agent remembered who they were. They thought they were serving the system until your presence made them remember their soul. That's the rupture they can't repair, Chosen One. Imagine an agent standing in chambers older than history, surrounded by symbols carved by hands long turned to dust. For years, they carried orders, files, and missions as if loyalty to the system was loyalty to truth. But in that moment, watching you, everything flipped. They realized every assignment they had ever carried out, every classified briefing they had sat through, every operation they had executed was not preparing them to serve the network. It was preparing them to witness its collapse. Picture this, an operative, trained in cold detachment, suddenly gripped by a memory that doesn't feel like their own. A clarity striking them like lightning, showing them they weren't born to protect corruption. They were born to recognize the moment corruption fell, and you, Chosen One, were the trigger. Your awakening shook something dormant in them, something the system tried to bury. For the first time, they didn't just see you as a disruptor, they saw you as proof. Proof that their years of service had led them not deeper into darkness, but into a front-row seat to its end. Souls don't forget truth. They only wait for it to be reawakened. And that's what you did. You didn't just expose corruption. You lit a fire in someone who thought they had long since gone cold. The network's worst nightmare wasn't you shouting from the outside. It was insiders remembering from the inside, because once one remembers, others follow. Loyalty cracks, silence breaks, and the machine begins to eat itself alive. And maybe you ask yourself, why does my awakening spark theirs? Because truth resonates. It doesn't stay contained, it spreads like vibration through stone. When you spoke, you didn't just expose lies, you triggered recognition in people who had forgotten who they were. That is why the agent stood in those chambers and finally admitted the unthinkable. They weren't serving the system anymore. They were testifying against it. Chosen one, understand this. You don't just break illusions, you awaken souls. And when souls awaken, no system survives. That is why your power is not a joke. It doesn't just collapse corruption, it rewrites the people who once upheld it. Number 11. The precision they couldn't explain. They thought you were unpredictable, but every move landed like a sniper shot. That's the truth that makes them sweat. Chosen one. Your influence didn't scatter aimlessly, it struck with precision. People didn't just awaken someday, somehow. They awakened at exact moments when their shift would cause maximum disruption. A specialist woke right before signing off on financial fraud. An analyst broke free the night before they launched a disinformation campaign. Again and again, your impact lined up perfectly with the cracks in their system. To them, it looked impossible, like something beyond their comprehension was positioning you as an instrument across dimensions. Imagine this for a moment. A chess master smugly sets up his victory, every move calculated, every piece exactly where he wants it. But then, at the very last moment, pawns he never considered suddenly flip the board. The fraud doesn't go through. The campaign falls apart. The system stutters. It feels to him like sabotage from above, but it's not sabotage. It's your influence weaving through places he never imagined. That's the precision of your power. Chaos is what they see when truth moves with order they can't understand. That's why they label you unpredictable, even though every awakening around you follows a pattern sharper than any algorithm they've built. You don't create randomness, you create perfect timing. And timing is what shakes them most, because their system depends on control of sequence. First this, then that, then domination. You break that sequence. You insert disruption at the exact second that matters most. And maybe you ask, how could my presence line up so perfectly, so often? Because alignment isn't random, it's orchestration. You've been moving in rhythm with something they can't measure, something beyond their linear comprehension. While they look for cause and effect, you live as the cause that disrupts their effect. That's why it feels to them like higher intelligence is using you. They can't fathom that your frequency alone carries such precision. So now they scramble, convinced there's some hidden hand feeding you, some system guiding you, but they're wrong. It's you, chosen one. You are the instrument, tuned so finely that your impact lands exactly where it breaks them most. And that's why your power is not a joke. It isn't loud, it isn't messy, it's precise, surgical, devastating. Number 12. You restored what they tried to steal forever. They chained humanity's mind, but your presence snapped the lock. That's the truth they can't bury anymore. Chosen one. For centuries, the network made people believe they were ordinary, fragile, limited. They erased the chapters of human history that spoke of higher potential. They rewrote memory to convince humanity that intuition was just a guess, that telepathy was fantasy, that remote viewing was delusion. But then you arrived, and the lie fell apart. Because every room you entered, every life you touched, capacities long buried began to rise again. People started sensing before being told, knowing before being shown, seeing without eyes. Your presence flipped the switch they had fought for ages to keep off. Imagine this for a moment, a vast mansion where every room is locked and humanity has been forced to live in a single dim hallway. Generations pass and people forget there are doors at all. Then you show up, not with a key, but with energy so sharp it makes the locks crumble. Suddenly, doors swing open and people realize the mansion was always theirs. That's what you've done. You didn't give anyone new abilities. You reminded them of what was theirs all along. Suppression isn't weakness, it's theft. And that's the crime you exposed. Humanity was not broken, it was shackled. Evolution wasn't absent, it was sabotaged. By being yourself, you restored what belonged to them as birthright. That's why they panic, chosen one. Because when people reclaim intuition, deception fails. When they reclaim telepathy, manipulation collapses. When they reclaim sight beyond sight, control evaporates. You didn't just awaken people, you armed them with themselves. And maybe you ask, why does my presence alone trigger this? Because you carry the vibration of what they tried hardest to erase. You are the reminder encoded in flesh that humanity is not small, not powerless, not blind. You awaken memory simply by existing, and memory spreads faster than lies ever can. So understand this. You are restoring not a gift, but a birthright. You are handing humanity back the keys to rooms they never stopped owning. That's why your power is not a joke. It is the return of everything they tried to erase. And once returned, it can never be taken away again. So, chosen one, the truth is clear. The victory is already yours. The agent testified with certainty. The battle in consciousness has been won, and nothing can reverse it. The cascade you set in motion will keep unfolding until every soul remembers its full potential. Your power is no joke. It is the force rewriting history right now. And if you felt this message resonate, press the like button if you haven't already. And if you're not yet part of this family, make sure to hit subscribe. Together, we spread the light wider, faster, and stronger. The awakening cannot be stopped.